Okay, let's dive into this explainer and systematically master the notoriously complex biochemical process of photosynthesis. Look, if you've ever felt completely overwhelmed by all the enzymes, the electron carriers, and the specialized cell structures, you are absolutely not alone. Today, we're going to break down these mechanisms into an easy-to-follow energy relay. We're doing a full-on revision session, focusing right in on the light and dark reactions, the actual true nature of chlorophyll, and exactly how plants operate as these ultimate biological factories to churn out glucose. But before we get into the heavy biochemistry, let's actually start with something foundational. When you look at a leaf, you see green. So you'd probably just assume that the chlorophyll pigment itself is green, right? Well, data from a really fascinating study by the Max Planck Institute challenges that basic assumption. It asks a pretty cool question. What is the true color of chlorophyll when you take it entirely out of the plant? And what's crazy is that the true color of isolated chlorophyll is actually way bluer than we think. According to the researchers, when you measure chlorophyll without the interference of its surrounding cellular environment, it absorbs light primarily in the deep blue and red spectrums. The plant cell environment, specifically those protein pockets holding the pigment, actually red shifts the spectrum. This means chlorophyll naturally absorbs that blue and red light, while pretty much entirely rejecting the green wavelengths, just bouncing that green light right back into our eyes. So those vital light harvesters, they are secretly working in the blue and red zones. All right, here's our roadmap for today's revision. We'll be hitting chloroplasts and chlorophyll, the light-dependent reactions, photophosphorylation and ATP, the Calvin cycle, and finally, connecting the two stages. Let's kick things off with section 1, chloroplasts and chlorophyll. So let's zoom in on the microscopic stage where this entire energy relay goes down, the chloroplast. This is a specialized, double-membraned organelle perfectly built to capture sunlight. Inside, you've got these little stacks of disc-like thylakoid membranes. A whole stack of these is called a granum, or grana, plural. And this is exactly where our blue and red-loving chlorophyll pigments actually live. Surrounding all these stacks is an aqueous fluid called the stroma, and it's literally packed with the enzymes we're going to need for the second half of our story. Now, in exams, it is remarkably easy to get the locations of these different reactions mixed up. So, to easily remember the order of events, just use the simple mnemonic trick. The letter G for grana comes before the letter S for stroma in the alphabet. Just like the grana handles the first light-dependent stage, the stroma handles the second light-independent stage. It matches their alphabetical order perfectly. Moving right along to section 2, the light-dependent reactions. Now that we know our locations, let's dive deeper into those thylakoid membranes and actually trace the journey of a single photon of sunlight. This whole stage is about capturing solar energy and converting it into temporary chemical energy. It all kicks off when light excites electrons at the reaction centers of photosystems 2 and I. And to replace the electrons lost from photosystem 2, the plant does something totally incredible, a process called photolysis. It literally uses light to split a water molecule into protons, electrons, and oxygen. And the byproduct? Yep, that's the very oxygen we are breathing right now. Meanwhile, those excited electrons move down an electron transport chain, and their energy is transferred to charge up our short-lived cellular batteries, ATP and reduced NADP, which we usually just call NADP. Which brings us to section 3, photophosphorylation and ATP. So we know energy is captured, but how exactly does the plant act as a microscopic ATP factory? Well, comparing these two pathways is an absolute exam lifesaver. Non-cyclic flow is your standard pathway. It's often called the Z-scheme because of how the energy levels zigzag. It utilizes both photosystem 2 and 1, it splits water, and it produces ATP, NADPH, and oxygen. But if a chloroplast starts running low on ATP for the Calvin cycle, it can flexibly shift into cyclic flow. In cyclic flow, only photosystem 1 is used. The electrons just cycle back around. Water isn't split, and there's no oxygen or NADPH produced. It's just a closed-loop system dedicated solely to churning out ATP. But what physically drives the creation of that ATP molecule? The answer is chemiosmosis. As electrons bounce down the transport chain, their energy is used to pump protons into the enclosed thylakoid space. Combine that with the protons left over from splitting water, and you get a massive concentration gradient. These protons desperately want to flow from the high concentration inside the thylakoid out to the lower concentration in the stroma. So they rush through a specialized channel protein called ATP synthase. literally spinning this enzyme like a tiny molecular turbine to synthesize ATP from ADP and inorganic phosphate. All right, on to section 4, the Calvin cycle. With our ATP and energy batteries fully charged up from the light reactions, we step out of the thylakoid grana and head into the fluid stroma for the light-independent dark reactions. To kick things off here, we rely on rubisco. Now, this is potentially the most abundant and honestly, arguably the most important enzyme on our planet. Why? Because rubisco is responsible for carbon fixation. It literally pulls inorganic carbon dioxide gas right out of thin air and attaches it to an organic molecule so the plant can use it. It's the vital bridge between the non-living atmosphere and the living biosphere. Let's see how this builds up through 3 distinct phases in the Calvin cycle. First up is fixation. Our star enzyme rubisco takes a CO2 molecule and combines it with a 5-carbon starting molecule called RuBP. This immediately splits into 2 3-carbon compounds. Next is reduction, and here is where we use up those batteries we charged earlier. ATP provides the energy, and NADPase provides the electrons to reduce these compounds into a highly energetic 3-carbon sugar precursor called G3P, or PGAL. And finally, phase 3 is regeneration. Because this is a cycle, right? We can't just take all the G3P to make glucose. Most of it has to be recycled, using even more ATP, to regenerate our starting RuBP molecule so the cycle can actually catch the next molecule of CO2. Now, what's truly staggering here is the sheer scale of the microscopic work being done. Because a single molecule of glucose has 6 carbon atoms, it takes 6 full turns of the Calvin cycle to produce just 1 single molecule of glucose. The cycle has to run, capture an individual carbon dioxide molecule, fix it, reduce it, and regenerate its materials 6 separate times just to assemble a single sugar molecule. It's a massive testament to the relentless, ongoing cellular machinery running inside every single green leaf. Finally, section 5, connecting the 2 stages. Zooming back out to the big picture, we can really see how these 2 intricate metabolic pathways map perfectly onto one another in this harmonious biological loop. The light-dependent reactions take in sunlight and water to generate oxygen, ATP, and NADPH. The Calvin cycle then instantly grabs that ATP and NADPH, combines them with carbon dioxide, and outputs glucose. But crucially, look at what else the Calvin cycle outputs: the depleted, uncharged ADP and NADP plus molecules. These are immediately sent right back to the thylakoids to be recharged by the sun all over again. It's the ultimate recycling system. And this chemical equation, it represents the foundational math of life on Earth. It beautifully summarizes the entire synergistic journey from sunlight to sugar. 6 molecules of carbon dioxide plus 6 molecules of water, powered by light energy, yield 1 molecule of glucose and 6 molecules of oxygen. Everything we just explored, the electron transport chains, the chemiosmosis, the spinning ATP synthase, the rubisco enzyme, and those 6 turns of the Calvin cycle, it is all hidden right inside that simple little arrow. So I'll leave you with this provocative thought to test your mastery of the material as you revise your notes. Remember that cyclic photophosphorylation only produces ATP, completely bypassing the splitting of water and the creation of NADPH. If the water splitting stops and that NADPH supply dries up, what happens to the glucose assembly line? Think about exactly which step in the Calvin cycle would hit a dead end first, and why the plant relies so heavily on maintaining a perfect balance between its cyclic and non-cyclic pathways. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into photosynthesis, and good luck with your continued learning.